Hello everybody, and thanks for joining us for another how-to video on the Resilience Analysis and Planning tool.
Today, we're going to focus on one of the most useful parts of the RAPT, and that is the attribute table. So what is the attribute table? In a nutshell, it displays all of the indicator, infrastructure, and hazard information in a tabular form that's really easy to sort out and it's easy to export as well. So we're going to talk about how to view the information in the attribute table quickly. So we'll begin with our initial page of RAPT, and this should look familiar for those of you who watched the first video. So after logging on and collapsing the information bar on the left, so what we want to do is zoom into a specific area to get a better view, and then we'll turn on a couple of the census tract layers to show how data is visualized in the attribute table. So let's zoom in on the Midwest for a little bit. Again, I'm using my mouse and just scrolling with the mouse and also clicking and dragging to bring the area we want to look at to the center of the page. So we can see, now that we're zoomed in on a specific area, we're going to take a look at our census tract indicators for that area. Again, we're looking at the state of Michigan, which is in Region 5. So we'll click on the Region 5, Region 6 tab, and you'll see we have our list of indicators on the right. Since we're going to be looking at the census tract level, I have gone through and I've toggled off the pop-ups county data. So we will just receive pop-ups for our census tract data that you can see. So let's turn on a couple of these indicators and then see how we can get to the attribute table. Let's say we want to take a look at the disability indicator. We'll look at limited English proficiency. Again, the map will only display the indicator that is listed towards the top of the list, but the limited English proficiency indicator is running in the background. So there are three different ways to view information in the attribute table, depending on what level of data set you'd like to examine. For instance, let's say we want to focus on a single entity or a single census tract. We can access the attribute table through the pop-up box for that entity. So let's zoom in a little bit closer so we can see some of these census tracts. So you'll see right now we can actually get a good view of the specific census tracts. And remember, when we click on a census tract, we should see the same number of tabs in the pop-up box as indicator layers that we have toggled on. We can see in the pop-up box, we have the tab for percent of households with limited English, which corresponds to the indicator layer we have toggled on. We also have the percentage of the population with a disability, which also corresponds to the indicator layer we have toggled on. And then our last tab is for the census tract, all of the indicator values, which corresponds to the pop-ups census tract data layer that we have toggled on. In the bottom of all of these tabs, you'll notice three dots. We can click on the three dots and the list of options will appear. And we can click on these three dots from any of the tabs. It will take us to the same place. So when we click on these three dots, you'll see a list of options. And one of the options is to view an attribute table. So if we click on that, we'll see that the attribute table appears from the bottom of our screen. And you'll notice that the attribute table that appears has only one feature. In the bottom left, you can see how many features, or in this case, census tracts, are listed in the attribute table. You'll see there's only one feature listed, which corresponds to census tract 301, which is the same census tract of our pop-up box. So we'll just demonstrate that again. From a different tab, let's say we want to look at the tab with all of our indicator values. We can hit the three dots and we'll say View an Attribute Table. And you'll see we have one feature listed and it's the same census tract. So as we scroll to the right in this table, you'll see a lot of information basically on the census tract and what state it's in and what county. But we'll get to a point where we now have the census tract listed and we also have the census tract population, along with all of the values for each of the indicators. And you'll notice that these correspond to the same values that you can see in the pop-up for that census tract. So this is one way to see the data for the specific census tract in a tabular view. So let's say we want information on all of the counties or all of the census tracts within an entire region. we can also access that through the attribute table. So we're going to show you how to do that. So let's exit out of that tab and we'll close the attribute table. And we'll close this pop-up box. So now, again, we want the information for all of the census tracts in the region. So we can zoom out a little bit. And you'll notice that next to each of the community resilience indicators listed in the layer list, we also have 3 dots on the right. If we click on those 3 dots, you'll see we have a variety of options, and one of them is View an Attribute Table. When we click on the View an Attribute Table option, you'll notice that the attribute table appears from the bottom of the screen again. One of the things that I want to point out is you'll notice in the bottom left where it says the number of features, it says 565 features for this example. One of the things that you want to make sure and pay attention to, you'll notice in the bottom left of the screen it says 565 features. It is important to note that these are only the features that are visible on the map at this point. To see all of the features or census tracts for the entire region, make sure we click on Filter by Map Extent to turn that off. It should now load all of the census tracts for the entire region 5, and so you can see now our features have increased from 565 to 13,146. So now that we've been able to view the individual census tracts, we can now see all of the census tracts within the region. Again, if we scroll down, you'll see each of the census tracts listed, and if we scroll to the right, you'll see the indicator information and values for each of those census tracts listed within Region 5. So let's say we want information on all of the counties or all of the census tracts in the entire nation. So we'll start back from the beginning. We'll exit out of this, and we'll close the attribute table. So no matter which indicator layers we have toggled on, we can access the attribute table for all of the census tracts by clicking on the black arrow at the bottom of the map. It's kind of small, you have to look pretty closely to see it, but when you hover over it, it will say Open Attribute Table. Now when we click on that, you'll see the attribute table pop up, and you'll see 2 tabs that are always preloaded in the attribute table. One says All County Level Indicators for download, and the other one says All Census Tract Indicators for download. Since we're talking about census tracts, we'll click on All Census Tract Indicators for download. And again, since we've removed the Filter by Map Extent, this shows us all 74,001 features or census tracts that are available for download in the whole entire United States. Just to see the difference, if we do click on Filter by Map Extent, you'll see the attribute table updates and will only list the census tracts that we can see in the map. And you'll see there are 565 again. So again, we'll turn that off. So now we're looking at all of the census tracts that are available in the United States. So let's say we want to narrow down our data set even further to a specific state or a county. We can use the filter option. When we're in the attribute table, we can click on Options and we can click on Filter. You'll see a pop-up box that appears. In this pop-up box, you'll have the option to add an expression. And in this expression, we can filter our census tracts by any of the characteristics of the indicator. So for instance, if we click state abbreviation and we type MI for the state of Michigan and hit OK, we can see now that the only census tracts that are listed in the attribute table are the ones for the state of Michigan, as per our filter that we included. Now let's say we want to look at all of the census tracts in multiple states. We can simply add another expression to the filter. So if we go back to our options and filter, the filter will remain on until we hit the X next to it to clear it out. We want to add another expression. And let's say we want to look at all of the census tracts in Michigan and Indiana. An important thing to note right here is at the top of this filter box, there's a drop down. And if you want to include multiple expressions in your filter, especially if they're multiple states, we need to change this from display features in the layer that match all of the following expressions to display features in the layer that match any of the following expressions. Now when we click OK, we can see that the filter has selected all of the census tracts in both of the states. You can see the features went up to 4,324. And now this layer list will include all of the census tracts in both the state of Michigan and the state of Indiana. So now let's say we want to look at census tracts in a specific county within the state of Michigan. There's a way to do that as well. So we go back to our filter, and instead of having our second expression be the state of Indiana, we can add an expression. And under our options, instead of a state abbreviation, we want the county. And one of the things we can do is change the way it searches for counties. So instead of having the input be a value, we can have the input be unique. And you'll notice when we click on the drop-down menu, it has all of the counties in the United States listed. So for instance, if we're looking at a specific county in Michigan, we can scroll through this list and find it, or we can type it in, and it will show the counties that match. So when we hit OK from this menu, you'll notice that the census tracts that are listed and our number of features are only 128. And this corresponds to only the census tracts that are within the specific county that we determined, within the specific state that we determined. So now that we have our desired data set, let's say we want to save this information or distribute the data to others. How can we do that? Well, we can do that by exporting this data. So one way that we have to export it is through our attribute table as well. So let's say this is the data set we want to look at. Some of the benefits of exporting the data is that we're able to look at each county or census tract's value for each indicator and specifically isolate certain ones that we would like. We can also create graphs and visuals once we're in Excel. And we can also easily share this data with others. So when we're in the attribute table, after we've set all of our filters, we go back to Options, and there's an option at the very bottom that says Export All to CSV. When we click on that, a pop-up box will ask us if we want to export this data to a CSV file. We will click OK, and then at the bottom of our screen, you'll see an Excel document open. When we click to open that document, it should open in Excel, and you will see a list of our specific data set that was filtered by the filters. We have it displayed in an Excel document. Again, this is the same information that was viewable in the attribute table, but now we have it in a form that's a little bit more user-friendly, and then you can use and distribute as you see fit. You'll see the different census tract names as we look in column F. We have the census tract population in column G, and then we also have all of our indicators in columns I through R. So I'm going to exit out of that Excel document, which takes us back to our map, which takes us back to our attribute table. So in this lesson, we have seen all of our data filters for a specific data set. We've been able to display it visually on the map, and as we've also been able to display it in tabular form in Excel. So just to recap, in this video, we were able to look at how to view information in the attribute table. We were able to look at viewing a single entity. We were able to look at viewing a specific region or state. And we also looked at how to view data at the national level. We also discussed some of the benefits of viewing the information in a tabular form. We talked about how to set our filters to view specific subsets of data, and we also learned how to export data to Excel. Some of you might have questions on how to do the same for infrastructure or hazards data, and we will address that in the how-to video that talks about infrastructure and hazard layers. So thank you very much for joining us again. Be sure to check out our additional RAPT how-to videos that help explain the unique tools and functionality of the RAPT, and I thank you.